Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fifth session of Roger Casement's summer school. My name is Piero Ngadi. I'm a human rights activist, and I'm also Universal Ambassador of Peace. I have the privilege to introduce Mary Lawler, who is the founder of Frontline Defenders and also board member of that organization. Brief story for Mary. Mary, she's currently a adjunct professor in the School of Business, Trinity College, and sits also on steering committee to develop an ethic policy for the School for Business. She was director of Frontline Defenders since 2000 until 2016, and director of Amnesty International in 1988 to 2000. Mary Laura has wide experience of developing sustainable non-government organization. I think when this Frontline was formed, I was one of the volunteers, also the first volunteer, and even in Amnesty International. She is really a caliber on human rights issues. And Mary also, she's the few ladies or women from Ireland who has experience in, let's say, worldwide to focus on human rights issues. I call her like a champion of human rights. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join your hand with me to welcome Mary Lawler.
I wasn't expecting that. Oh, I don't have to stand up. I forgot about this thing. So first of all, before we begin, I want to just tell you that at the end of this session, which, as you know, is the last session of the summer school, Roger, who is walking past here, the chair of the DLR, Roger Casement Summer School, will make a few concluding remarks. So I just want you to know that there'll be just another short intervention when we're finished, okay? So it gives me great pleasure to be here because I think human rights defenders are the most inspirational people in the world. And I noticed that the outgoing UN High Commissioner for Human Rights made a wonderful speech. He left office yesterday. And he made a wonderful speech, and he says that the hope for humanity lies in the work of human rights defenders at local level, working against injustice. And, you know, that's really what I believe. And we are in the presence today of two great young human rights defenders from the Middle East. And it is an extraordinary pleasure for me to have met them yesterday and to have heard their stories. And what I really want to do first is to link the work that Roger Casement did in Peru and in Congo, of course, you know, where he was a human rights defender because he was documenting atrocities involved in the slavery, in the rubber trade. He was writing and exposing the slave and unpaid labor, the violence and physical abuse, the rape of women and girls, the starvation and the murder. And that documentation was so important, and it was so dangerous at that time. Just the sheer travel and to be able to produce such wonderful reports, which had a huge and profound effect, I think was amazing. So just with that link in mind, we now have two modern-day human rights defenders. And the way we're going to run this session is we're going to do it in two parts. First of all, I want to introduce my two colleagues here. Hadil, how do you pronounce your second name?
Bugres.
Right. Is from Kuwait. She's a Kuwaiti human rights defender and a writer and a photographer. And she monitors and documents human rights abuses in Kuwait. And she's a founding member and trainer of the Kuwait Institute for Human Rights and a member of the Regional Alliance for Women Human Rights Defenders in the Middle East and North Africa. And she's been actively involved in a campaign called Namshi Laha, which is Walking for Her, which is a campaign calling for gender equality in Saudi Arabia, which, as you know, is a country where women are not equal. And as a direct result of her work, she has faced numerous threats, and some of them very violent in nature. So she's also written a play, and she has written a song, which we may play a little bit of at the end if we have time. And on my right here is Lana Ramadan, and Lana's from Bethlehem and is a Palestinian human rights defender, and of course Ireland has a great affinity to the plight of Palestinians. And Lana was born in Bethlehem. She is a refugee herself, and she did her BA in International Law and Human Rights, and then she got a postgraduate degree from the LSE in Human Rights. And she worked first of all as a researcher at the Badil Centre for Refugees and Residency Rights, and currently she is the International Advocacy Officer of Adamir Prisoners' Rights Association. So I'm going to now ask Lana to give us an overview, set the scene more or less, for how she became involved, you know, what brought her into human rights, the situation in Bethlehem, and her personal story. So a warm welcome to Lana.
Thank you, everyone. This is working, yeah? Yeah, it is. I might stand up in a bit because I just usually don't sit down when I'm talking, but we'll see how that goes. So my name is Lana Ramadan. I was born in the Hisha refugee camp. It's a refugee camp in Bethlehem. So I'm not really from Bethlehem. For those who don't know what Bethlehem is, I think you do. It's where Jesus was born. It's a small city in Palestine. Now it's what you would know as the West Bank. Originally, I'm from a really tiny village west of Jerusalem. This tiny village is 20 minutes away from Bethlehem, but of course I can't go there. It became part of what is now Israel in 1948. For those who don't know, 1948 was the year where Israel was created, and more than half of the population, Palestinian population, was forcibly deported. Both of my grandparents were deported from their village. After walking for days, like most of those Palestinians, they stayed in this piece of land which became the refugee camp. They became refugees. Their sons and daughters, so both of my parents, became refugees. And then I became a refugee. And if one day I'll get children, they're going to be also refugees. And that's because Palestinians are the only people which inherit this status. We inherit the status of being refugees. I guess they just knew that this issue isn't going to be solved anytime soon. So the refugee camp, even though it's a camp, it's not tents anymore. It's been 70 years. It's just houses on top of each other. It's not the only camp in the West Bank or in Gaza, because people were kicked out and they went to the West Bank, many cities in the West Bank, to Gaza, and to neighboring countries. We're in Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. We're still there. Most of those refugees are there. Of course, because of the Syrian issue, many of the Palestinian refugees fled again for the second time. But we're there. Just a bit of an overview of why I became, as Mayor just asked, interested in human rights. It's kind of not a choice. We don't only inherit the status of being refugees, we inherit a collective memory, more or less. It's the memory of what our grandparents experienced. And it's not stopping, this collective memory. You can think of it as a house, and it's just floors are being built on top of each other, a year after the other. So I'm not only inheriting what happened in 1948, I'm not only inheriting what happened to my own people who got forcibly deported, I'm also inheriting what those Palestinians who remained and in what became Israel, who remained there and lived under a military rule. I inherited that as well. I inherited the 20 years of people being just confused and living in camp and don't know what they're gonna do. And then I inherited what happened in the 60s when the occupation happened, when Israel occupied the rest of the territory. And now I'm living personal experiences and collective experiences. So it's kind of not a choice. We live with it on a daily basis. We see violence on a daily basis, directly and indirectly. And it's what all of our grandparents and parents lived. So yeah, it's not a choice. Everything is political back home. So yeah, any other questions?
Would you like to describe Bethlehem in a little bit greater detail? Because a lot of people here know, but wouldn't have the perspective that you...
I just told you now that a bit of the history. So I've told you that in 1948, people got expelled of their houses and lands, more than the half of the Palestinian population. Some Palestinians remained. They lived under what is called a military rule. After a few years, they gave them Israeli citizenship and passports. They have them until now. There are around 2 million Palestinians. But those people lived under extreme discriminatory and violent policies that are almost the exact same policies we live under now, so the occupation policies. In the 60s, they occupied the rest of the land, and of course, the policies didn't just end. They're still colonizing it until now. So Bethlehem is a small city, but it's like all the cities in the West Bank. It's surrounded by many Israeli settlements, so illegal settlements, because I don't know if you may know this, but Israel sends their own citizens, settlers, to live in the West Bank. So all Palestinian cities in the West Bank, they're surrounded, including East Jerusalem, they're surrounded by settlements. And if it's not a settlement next to them, it would be a road for settlers. So I'll give you a story. Now I had to move to Ramallah. Sorry, I'm gonna just stand up. I had to move to Ramallah because it's more than 1 hour and a half commute, and you may think this is just fine, it's just an hour and a half. It's supposed to be half an hour, maximum, because we used to go through Jerusalem. Now they've built the walls, they have the apartheid wall, we can't go to Jerusalem, I can't go to East Jerusalem. So I have to go around, and that's why I had to move to Ramallah. Rent is expensive. And on the way, if I'm in Bethlehem, I'm going to Ramallah, I'm gonna cross by minimum 3 settlements and some roads, fancy roads. I know that, I see that all the time. And I also know about them planning to annex most of the land in the West Bank, which has the settlements, which is around 60% of the land. I know also that, I write about it, because you know, I'm a human rights defender, I document things and I write things, I'm a researcher. But I think 2 months ago, I had to have an American visa. And so I have to go to the American embassy, which is in Jerusalem. And I can't go to Jerusalem. So I had to get a permit, but there was no time to get a permit. So I had to sneak in. And I did sneak in. I went in a private car, and I was just so nervous, so I just didn't look around. I just wanna go in, do this interview, get the visa, and leave. And then I left, and when I left, I was so nervous. I was like, I don't wanna see Jerusalem, just take me home, I'm too nervous. And this is what my friend did. He was driving home, And I'm on this really nice road. And I was like, what is this road? It's really big. It has walls. It's fancy. And I'm like a bit confused. I was like, what is this road? It's really nice. And I go to Google Maps, because now in Palestine we have Google Maps. I even saw the car walking around. And I look at my phone, and it's all Palestinian villages written. I know those villages. They exist. And I'm looking around, and I can't see any of them. I can't see any Palestinian village. I can't see any Palestinian human being. I can't see but this fancy road. This road, Israel constructed this road to connect settlers from East Jerusalem to the biggest settlement in the West Bank, and from there to Tel Aviv. It's a really nice, fast road, but it's not for Palestinians, it's for Israelis. And it's in the West Bank. And we don't know about it. This is the first time I saw it, even though I wrote about it. I documented this, but I've never seen it. It was only 10 minutes away from my house in Ramallah, but that was the first time I was on it. And for me, the most surprising thing that whoever crosses from this road can't even see Palestinians. So answering Mary's question about geography, you're not really far away from this context. It's a colonial project. They want land, and they don't want the people of that land. They want the maximum amount of land, the minimum amount of Palestinians. And to do that, they have to push people in certain areas, which are the cities like Bethlehem or Ramallah, which are circled and kind of closed already, and take the rest of the land. They don't even have to interact with us. They don't see us. They already control the whole of the territory. So this is just for you to understand geography, and just to keep in mind while I'm speaking about the rest of the things, that this colonial project is about land and demography. It's about having maximum amount of land with minimum amount of people. And you're not far away from this, I'm not sure.
Thank you very much, Lana. And I'd just like to add in, if you don't mind, because I've been in the West Bank and Gaza 3 times, and one thing that always struck me was the daily hardship inflicted on all the people who are trying to survive under horrendous conditions, and also the lack of free movement, even in exceptional circumstances when people are sick and need to move because of that or something. And I always think of Gaza as a prison camp because it's the size of Wexford. And you know, it's almost like a cattle mart, you know, where everyone is just kept in and nobody can leave, or and people can't go and visit them, and they can't go out, and it is one of the most soul-destroying experiences I think that anyone has to live under, occupation and not being able to move. So, now we're on to Hadil. So, Hadil, will you, go up there, and more or less set the scene for us again, and tell us about your awakening to justice in Kuwait, and a bit about the situation generally.
Okay, hi.
Maybe a little lower the mic, huh?
Yeah, I think it's so high to me.
Who's...
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Yeah, great. Fine. Hi, thanks for this opportunity to let
Can
us
everyone
talk.
hear Hadil before?
Yeah, I'm sweating. Thanks for giving us this opportunity, because most of the time we don't talk about ourselves, we talk about people, we support people, we just forget about ourselves. So when they asked me to talk about my personal experience in human rights and how did it start, I just remembered that when I was 12, my friend, she was being abused for being colored, and she was crying all the time because of that. And kids in the school, they were abusing her and calling her names just because of her color. Then I decided to stand up for her and stop the girls from abusing her and calling her names. And that was a big hell fight between us. And we had to use violence a little bit to stop it. So then I started to think that kids should not do this to each other. Kuwaiti society is kind of weird because it's already mixed, because we're all just flew away from many countries just to get to Kuwait, because Kuwait wasn't there at all. So we are many races and many colors and many even religions, and we have Jewish, we have Muslims, we have Christians, we have even Hindu people. So it's kind of weird that this society was not accepting others until now. And I come from a religious family, which is, even they accept other religions, but though they think that others are not even walking on the same road that they are walking with. So I didn't like that also. I didn't like what mom always says, that you have to choose the right path, you have to, what is the right path? We are all human, we are all equal. Since I was a kid, I was just thinking like that. I was thinking that there's something is wrong in this society and I have to fix it in another way. So when I was almost 30, I'm now 37. When I was 30, I saw that things are getting so hard in our society. Racism is getting so high. Sectarianism is getting so high. People are not accepting each other. And I have to say this. I saw this society. This is my first time in Europe. Your people are so friendly. We were just talking in the street about this. You guys are so friendly. You smile. We don't smile in Kuwait.
Yeah, but this isn't a representation of Europe.
Yeah. We don't smile, actually. We don't say hi if we don't know you. We're so strict, and we're so, I think the weather has a problem with that. So, yes, 50 degrees over there. So I thought there's something wrong in this society and we have to fix it, even with the children and adults and even young people. So I started to read about human rights, and the funny thing is that I've never heard a word human rights in our society until 2011. Maybe I wasn't reading in that path, I wasn't going into that path, but I was going there because, the Arab revolutions and what happened, the Arab Spring. So I heard for the first time some terminologies to the way that people are talking about human rights. They are talking about human rights. What is human rights? So I started to read about human rights. I started to educate myself. The schools, they just educate us with the moral and how to act like a good Muslim and how to act as a good person, but there's nothing about the history of human rights. We hear about the world wars and the killing and everything, but we don't hear some terminologies that goes there. And what I found about human rights was the thing that I was really looking for. I found myself there. I've been reading many books about this. I've been logging to the internet to get some information. The courses of human rights was so private in Kuwait. And I thought that this should be public. Everybody should go there and get training for free, not paying even money for it. And many times I've been trying to get into those courses by force. I have to force the people who are coordinating these courses to let me in, just to let me in. And they didn't want me to get in. And this is so funny for me to see people why are you trying to avoid us, not to let us know what is human right is all about? Why it's a private party? I called it a private party because it is a private party. So I started to read and educate myself and get myself so involved in it. So where that time, Frontline Defender found us. And you come from Ireland and you focus on us and nobody knows about us here in the Gulf. They see us as criminals. They see us as somebody who came just to to ruin this society because they think human rights is just exposing human rights that means that you're against your government, you're against your country. And talking about my country, because everybody think that Kuwait is a petroleum place that we're all happy, we all have money, we don't have problems. But sometimes, yes, problems do make, money does make that problem. We have this stateless issue, if you heard about stateless people here in Kuwait. Since 1996, there is a large number pronounced by the Kuwaiti government. We have 120,000 stateless people that we call them bidun. Bidun means that you're nothing. Bidun means actually in Arabic, nothing. No papers, no birth certificate. Even if they are dead, they don't have birth certificate. So just write you a paper, announcement that you're dead, announcement that you're getting married, announcement that you are birth. Do you just realize that we're just leaving those people and neglecting those people, and they're not a large number right now. There are more than 200,000 here in Kuwait. This is what even took me to that place that I should defend the human rights and protect those people from what is happening here in Kuwait. Because we live in levels. The people who are rich and happy, they don't care about what's happening down there. And this is so weird because I think this is a modern country and we're just we're going to the future right now, and people, they're just living in the dark ages. Actually, there are more than 4,000 child here in Kuwait. We don't have birth certificate. Birth certificate means that you're not going to school. And what happened in 2014, that we were protesting next to the Ministry of Education every single day for 3 months to get those kids back to school. And this put us already in danger and problem with the Kuwaiti government. And some of those kids did go to school, but others, they didn't go to school. And we still have this, because tomorrow is the first day of school in Kuwait. And I get some emails and text messages from parents. They're telling me that my son was not registered, they didn't accept him, and he's not going to school this year. Or I'm not able to pay for the school fees because, Bidun, if you don't have any document, any ID, you don't go to school, you don't have work, you don't have car license also, they don't have car license. So can you imagine how to be capable to live in such expensive society where those people have high classes and middle classes, and you're just in the scratch, and you're trying to seek for your bread on the table? And I took a long time to talk about this. So this is what really pushed me to work on, there's 2 levels of working with human rights, a humanitarian level, and there is a human rights level. So in Kuwait, we had to mix those things just to help people to get into school. Since 2012, we worked for a school bag campaign for Bidun children. We took from the donators money and make school bags for children. And this year, before I come here, we were almost given 900 bags to Bidun children just to make them happy and make them feel they have the right to education and access to education to go to school. But some kids, they actually took the bag, but they cannot go to school right now just because of those paper thing and documenting thing that the government, actually in Kuwait, they are doing this. And the weird thing that Kuwait is the big donor that gives everybody in Africa, Asia, just mentioned it, they give them money just to build schools and so on. But the Bidun children, they're just saying right over there, they're not doing anything. They just get house education and school. They just dream of going to school, actually.
And will you just talk a little bit about the social society, how doing your human rights work impacts on you in the social society?
Yeah, of course, being a human rights defender is being the enemy, the alien, the one who's talking and exposing violation everywhere. Even now, I am the enemy because I'm standing here in front of Irish people. She's going out there and she's talking about Kuwait, you know? It's a crime. It's a crime. And even if I'm a member in like this frontline defender or any ID that I have, I am doing something so criminal in even talking to the embassies or even exposing human rights. And actually, I wasn't getting any support, either from NGOs in Kuwait, either from my parents, my family. There was a big, large pressure on me to stop working in human rights field. I'm married, I was married. I have 2 children, a boy and a girl, and that makes it worse because you're always worried that, you know, we were discussing this yesterday for a woman working in this field, they call her names. I always get horror words all the time. I always get those men, they are asking me that they can rape me or they will do something to me or to kill me or you're just a whore. Yeah, that's what they say all the time. And even though they just stigmatize you as a wearing hijab and you're covering yourself, you're not exposing yourself, they don't respect it at all. They don't respect the woman who doesn't wear hijab, but also if you are covered, they will call the same name. So it's all the same to them. And that pressure came when I was even sent to be investigated 3 times after working in human rights field. And I'm always worried about my work, my payments, my everything, because I can be kicked just like that out of my work. I'm a single mom now for 7 years, and I'm the one who brings the bread on the table. So I'm always worried about my children and my work, and balancing these 2 jobs as a human rights defender and an employee. It's really hard because the society itself makes it very harder. It's a hard job to balance all that, to be a good parent and to work and to do the human rights duties. But also the society is pushing us so hard to stop. And every single time I decide to travel out of Kuwait and leave my children out there with my mother, there is a big, huge pressure on me that, and Lana, she knows that, I'm always worried about it. And I'm always like worrying about my children that something will be happening to them because of the pressure they practice on me. They are fine, they're happy, they just called me, but you know, it's still you have those worries going on because the society is doing that to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So now we're going to go back to Lana. And Lana is going to talk about her work on refugee rights and prisoners' rights. And anything else you want to say.
Thank you. It's really strange to speak about this in here. Mary has been trying to make me dance today, even though I won't. But you know, this space is familiar a bit to me. I danced the folklore Palestinian dance for 10 years. And even in the backstage with the mirrors and stuff, I'm like, whoa, it's been a while, but this is familiar. I've never done this talk, and I've done this talk a lot, in this context, in this space. So it's nice. It's a good change. And I'm telling you that we dance, so you don't think that our lives is only what I'm just gonna say. It might be a bit, it's not gonna be nice, but we do fun things as well. I travel. Not everyone travels, but I travel. We dance. We do lots of things. We love food as well. We love food too much, actually. So yeah. I now work in a prisoners organization. So I'm gonna tell you what a targeted area in the West Bank and including East Jerusalem looks like. And my refugee camp is a targeted area. It's not the only targeted area. Actually, all refugee camps are. Many small villages, many other areas, they're highly targeted. And they're highly targeted to pressure people So to just, pressure people, and if it's just keep in mind that if Israel thinks that someone has a conscience and understanding of what's going around them, they're gonna destroy this conscience. It's not that they think that someone might do something. No, no one is gonna do anything. People who act, they act because they just decided to act now. They can't plan it. As in, I mean, act as in resistant. They can't plan it. It's not gonna happen if they do. So that's why those areas are targeted. And I'm now gonna tell you what does that mean? What does a highly targeted area mean? So we get raids to the camp, and the average in those highly targeted areas, in my refugee camp, having a raid to the camp, is twice a week. Sometimes we'll have 3 times a week, those raids. Sometimes we have none. I don't know how, but we'll have none sometimes. Sometimes we'll have 4. It's random to us. I'm sure it's planned to the military army. But the average is twice a week. And when I say a raid, it's the most common way to arrest someone. Because arrests in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, they happen through 3 main ways. Either on a checkpoint or a border, and this is where they arrest people from Gaza, on the borders, whether it's in the sea or the land. It's either on protests, during protests and demonstrations, or through house raids. And house raids are the most common thing to use to arrest someone. A house raid isn't really only to arrest someone, because a lot happen in it. And I'm now gonna take you through what happens when someone gets arrested. So let's say soldiers are gonna come in to my camp tonight to arrest X. We have a captain to the area. It's an Israeli captain. He announced himself to us when he was assigned with a nickname. It's not his real name. So this captain comes with the soldiers the first time, and he stood up in the main street of the camp, and he told us his name is Nidal. He's the new captain. Nidal is an Arabic word. It's not his real name. Nidal in Arabic means resistance. So the name by itself is a bit provocative. And nowadays, Nidal doesn't tell us that he's coming. He just comes with his soldiers. What happens is they'd come in private cars. It's not cars, it's Fords, or those white big vans. So they come, let's say, in 3 of them, filled with soldiers. They'll walk around the camp, and then other military vehicles would come. Sometimes it would be intense, as in 10 military vehicles would be in the camp. And I'm speaking about 1 kilometer square. This is how big the camp is. And it's the second biggest camp in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. So it's tiny. What happens is, when they come in, the guys and youth in the camp, they wake up. They're either on their balconies, in the streets. They gather in groups. They try to push them out. They fail. They try through throwing stones. They also fail. Because soldiers would be all over. Those guys know that they're gonna fail in kicking out soldiers, but they still go out. They go out because they're determined. They feel that they have to do something, but most importantly, they wanna know where the soldiers are. I find it a bit funny, but it's nice. They have an application on the phone, those guys. It's kind of a walkie-talkie application. So if someone sees a soldier in front of his house, they'll be like, soldiers are in front of blah, blah, blah's house. And this is how it happens, because they're all over the camp, but no one knows where exactly they're going. Which house are they going to? And one of those guys would be on social media, typing this all out and posting it. So me, who isn't on the streets, would be awake in the house, worried, but knowing where the soldiers are. Of course, I'll hear them, because the first thing I hear would be sound bombs. Lots of sound bombs to scare people. A bit of tear gas bombs, but not a lot, because tear gas bombs are to the end. And then we call it a clash. The clash happens. The determined guys, want to kick them out. So rubber bullets, then live ammunition. And it would be really intense. And while this kind of clash is happening, those soldiers, with the captain, Nidal, would break into a house, not knocking on the door, breaking into the house, because they want to arrest X person. So they break into the house, and they ask where X is. X comes with his ID. They check the ID. They ask the family members, the entire family members, to be in one room or outside the house while they're searching the house. So sometimes they'll search the entire house. Sometimes they'll damage some belongings. Sometimes they'll confiscate stuff. Usually it's laptops and phones. And it's random. Sometimes they don't do that. We don't know. But for sure, they'll search X, the person, and then the person is handcuffed, eyes folded, and taken to a jeep. It doesn't matter if this person is an adult or if he's a minor, if it's a he or a she, it doesn't matter. Their hands are cuffed, eyes folded, into a jeep. They don't know where they're going. Their parents don't know either. So after this, soldiers would leave. This thing, what I'm describing now, would happen after the middle of the night. So it might happen at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m. It might happen for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Again, it's random to us, but planned to them. In Ramadan, the holy month, the Muslim holy month, it happens at 6 a.m. It's not because people are, this 6 a.m. is when people go to sleep in Ramadan. So it's not because, let's do that so fast while they're asleep. It's precisely, they're going to bed now, let's wake them up. But then they leave. When they leave, this is where people are worried. The entire camp would be filled with tear gas. This is how we know they're leaving. And then we want to go to the news and figure out what happened to the people in the camp. And what would the result be? The average is from 8 to 12 injuries. And those injuries are in the lower part of the body. So it might be the knees, ankles, but they're most of the time the lower part of the body. It's not only my camp, it's all those targeted areas. They target the lower part of the body to disable those youth and kids. And many of them are actually disabled now. They have a certain disability. But sometimes they miss. It's not the lower part of the body. In January, they shot a kid he was 13 years old, and it was in his back. He can't walk anymore. So they missed. It's not the lower part of the body. Sometimes it's even worse. Last year in the summer, young man, he was 19, he tried to run away when they came to arrest him. So before he even jumped from his balcony, he was shot with 7 bullets, stayed for a month in the hospital, and then passed away. A month ago, same thing happened to another kid who is 14 years old. He's my sibling. He's the same age as my own sibling. He goes to the same school. And this kid, he went out of the door when those clashes were happening, and he saw a group of guys on the ground. They were taking cover from live ammunition, and he didn't understand it. He recognized one of them and started running to him, shouting his name. This is from an eyewitness. And then he got shot, and that's it. His life ended. So in the past few years, let's say since 2014, those targeted areas would have someone getting killed at least every year. At least someone would be killed in those kind of clashes. It's mainly excessive use of force, using just lots of force during those clashes, and mainly to crash people, only to arrest a guy who might be 16, who might be 26, and I'll tell you about the charges now, and then leaving. I have no idea how people get energy after that. Every time, because I work in this field, I know how many people are getting arrested, and I'll tell you, many people are in jail from my camp. And every time I'm like, the soldiers come, I'm like, I don't think there's guys to come out this time. But I just feel that they become more, those guys. I have no idea where they come from. I honestly don't have any idea where they come from, because lots of them are in jail. All of my generation, the guys, they're in the jail for the second time, not first time. And now I'll take you to the, so X is arrested, he's taken in a jeep. I'll tell you what happens after that to know what kind of sentences Palestinians get. And why I'm saying that guys who are my age are serving for the second time. So I hope this isn't really complicated. If it's complicated, stop me, it's fine. So X is taken to the jeep. His family doesn't know where he is going, and he doesn't either. But they go to the lawyer, to someone. They go to an organization like mine, and they give us the ID number. We try to locate the person. We go, we file a request with the Israeli military court, because this is the system we deal with, the military court. And it takes up to 24 hours to locate the person, because it takes just so long to transfer someone. All the prisons, which are 17, except for one, are inside their territory. So it's not in the West Bank. They're in the Israeli territory, which is, according to international law, and we're not going to international law now, is illegal. It's deportation, not only illegal to imprison someone from an occupied territory in the territory of the occupier. Anyways, usually this person is in an interrogation center. There are 4 interrogation centers. An interrogation can last up to 60 days. And of course, you can imagine ill treatment happens. Usually, sessions would take to 12 hours. You're not far away from this, but yeah, hands would be cuffed. People would be in stress positions most of the time. It's similar to your history. I'm sure you know about it. But those policies are still existing in back home. Interrogations can be up to 60 days. A person can be held without any charges up to 75 days, and they can be banned from meeting their lawyer to 60 days. And those 60 days can be kind of a punishment mechanism. So if someone, let's say, is on a hunger strike, the judge can punish this person through banning them from meeting the lawyer. And it happened a lot, because hunger strike isn't allowed, but people do it. It's the only thing prisoners can do, but it's not allowed according to the military courts. After interrogations, the person would be confronted with a list of charges or put under administrative detention. If they're put under administrative detention, they won't have any list of charges. Under administrative detention is indefinite detention without charges. It's basically a military commander filing an order to the judge, and the judge to the person, and this person would be arrested based on secret information. The secret information would be only shared with the military commander and the judge. They appeal. I don't know why they appeal, because they don't know this secret information to appeal them, but they try to appeal, and of course they fail because they don't know the information. One order can be up to 6 months, and then it would be renewed indefinitely. Sometimes it takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. One of the Palestinian PLC members, a parliamentary, in the past 13 years, spent 11 years in detention. Half of those were administrative detention. Another human rights defender from Dehesha, he's a journalist, spent a similar time as well. In the past 10 years, the maximum time he spent with his own son was in detention, because his son got arrested for 2 years. It's funny, but it happens. Other kind of charges, or the most known charges, are throwing stones. So it's related to the order of, I don't know what, but it's throwing stones. It's affiliation to a political party. It's incitement, and incitement is Facebook posts, basically. And those are the most common 3 sentences. According to the numbers of the military court itself, the rate of someone getting sentenced is 99.9%. So basically everyone. Everyone who gets arrested and goes to the military court, they get sentenced. It's known for us. And after you work with it for like, let's say, 2 months, you not only get used to it. So I'm not only used to this, I also can evaluate. So when my friends call me and say, and it happened like 2 weeks ago. So they called me and they're like, so Lana, Abu Ayyash was arrested. Could you see what happened with him? Abu Ayyash is one of my friends. And I'm like, yeah, I'll see. And I go to the lawyer in my organization and I look at the file and I'm seeing like, 2 days? Okay, yeah, he's going to administrative detention. Before the order even comes out, we know where the person is going. Another person, I'll look at the file and yeah, he's probably gonna get a year and a half. It's incitement, Facebook posts. So we get used to it. It becomes part of our daily lives. It is part of our daily lives. It's part of my day to get a phone call from my own community or from someone from my friends, whether in Ramallah or in Beit Lahem, whether in Jerusalem or I don't know what. Someone calling me and telling me, yeah, could you check this person because he got arrested? This is his number. It's really part of the day as well, or let's say the week, because it might be longer, that I'll wake up in the middle of the night if I'm in the camp, because I heard the sound bombs, or on a phone call from my siblings if I'm in Ramallah, telling me the soldiers are in the camp. And I'll stay up all night, waiting and worried that someone might be killed after the end of the night. It becomes just part of the daily life. It's part of anything. So I got used to crossing checkpoints, going to university. So the checkpoint became part of the way. It's like crossing a city. And now, people getting killed, injured, and arrested is the same thing. It's part of our lives. It's something that happens every day, every week, every month. It happens all the time. And this isn't to make you just feel sad. Don't. You lived this. You lived this and you're done now from it. So I'm sure that one day we will too. And to get you back to the beginning of this speech, we dance. We dance a lot. We love food so much. If you visit Palestine, and Mary did, I'm sure she was offered so much food. I'm sure. Because this is what we do. We offer lots of food. I hope you do visit. But yeah, this is in general what I do and my life, and it's not my life alone. It's the life and lives of the rest of Palestinians I know. And I'll leave it to questions later. Thank you.
That was excellent. So now we're going to, after that riveting and very terrible in one way, and I am going to ask you later on, both of you, when you talk about the ongoing pressure and stress and worry of the lives that you leave, I am going to ask you later on, how do you cope with it? So to be thinking about that as well. Food might be one way, but there must be other ways as well. So now on to Hadil. And Hadil is going to talk about Bahrain and Saudi Arabia because she's been involved in campaigns in both those countries, but I will leave it to her to explain. I'm sorry, if I could just say first, Hadil, one of our ex-colleagues, Abdul Hadi Al-Khawaja from Frontline Defenders, was arrested in 2011. He had left Frontline. He was the protection coordinator for the Middle East, and he'd left Frontline to get involved in the movement for democracy and human rights in Bahrain, because at that time the Arab Spring was creating great hope among Arab countries, and he was subsequently arrested and tortured to such an extent that he has a steel plate in his jaw, and he's been in prison since 2011, and nothing, I mean, Frontline Defenders campaigned for so long on his case, and a case I'm sure you're going to mention today, without any success, right up to the Secretary of UN Secretary of State, the American Secretary of State, because they have air bases in Bahrain, and also Mike Posner, who was the Assistant Secretary for Human Rights and Democracy, the Danes, because he had Danish citizenship, the EU, the UN, individual countries, actors, music, and nothing shifted. Nothing has shifted. So he is still in prison, but his spirits are good. I saw him when he was standing trial originally last, and he was recently taken to a hospital for treatment with his hands shackled, and normally and his legs. And normally when prisoners are taken to a hospital, they don't want anyone to see them, but he told Khadija, his wife, he stood strong, and he wanted everyone to see that they hadn't crushed his spirit.
He's an idol to us also. Abdelhadi al-Khawaja and also Nabil Rajab, they are iconic names in the GCC regions. We were so inspired by their personality and their work in human rights field. Actually, those two persons, they just impressed me so much, that the way they worked on their human rights in Bahrain. Also in Saudi Arabia, we have Walid Abul Khair, Samar Badawi, Ra'af Badawi. We have many, many names there, and they are so brave to stand up against such regimes we have in the GCC country, because as I said before, we think that we have the money. Money means power, affecting the UN or even in Human Rights Council. They think that they have their own allies there and they support them all the time. And by the way, these days we're celebrating Nabil's Rajab birthday, and we're campaigning also for him. We have many prisoners in Bahrain, prisoners of like political prisoners. Also in Kuwait, we have less than that. Also Saudi Arabia, they have a large number of political prisoners just for fighting back for their human rights. And this is so weird that we, after all those years, that having our own human rights, social and political human rights, we have to fight back against such regimes. They act in the, like the general or the world society, they are showing they're nice guys and they're helping everybody around the world, but they're not. They're not helping us. They're not helping their own people. And back to Bahrain case, also the Saudi Arabia case. I've been working on Bahraini case just because I heard that they call us brothers and sisters in GCC countries, you know, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Emirates. So they think that this council that we have between us as GCC countries makes the governments all just the brothers and sisters, but the people themselves, we work together as also brothers and sisters. So the weirdest thing that if I supported any of my brothers and sisters around the GCC country, I'll get arrested or even criminalized just to do that. So when we work on Bahrain case, also Saudi Arabia case, the attacks that come from the people themselves or even the regimes themselves. They have their Twitter account all around the world. They control the Twitter. They control the social media. They have their own army, well-paid army. They control everything, the TVs, the satellites, everything. So the girls from Saudi Arabia, the ladies told me that you're well-known in the GCC country to protect human rights, so why don't you just talk about our rights as equal rights between men and women in Saudi Arabia? You know that last year, even the Saudi women, until last year, they couldn't drive. So we make that the smallest campaign ever. I didn't work so hard for it. We worked for Nemshi Laha, means in English, walking for her. So I said, okay, let's gather as girls and walk for 1 hour, just to a symbolic work, to show people that, okay, girls, we're together, we support you, you know. We just brought those pink balloons and pink ribbons. We walked for 1 hour. I just posted in a Twitter. It was live on Twitter. So the week before the event, I've been receiving many messages, threat messages. They want to cut my throat. They want to rape me. Yeah, that's funny. They said that I am ambassador of a Khamenei. You know Khamenei, who? The Iranian president, you know, the spiritual president. They said that I work for Khamenei. This is so weird because I don't work for Khamenei, I'm just a human rights defender. You know how they play and manipulate people, make them think that you're the enemy, you're the outsider, you came from Iran just to support human rights, as they said on Bahraini people also. They work for Iran to make you the enemy, you know, because there's a fight between Sunni and Shia, I think, here in the Gulf, always, always, forever. So after the 5th of April, 2017, I had a massive attacks on my Twitter account, and I had those threats. They call me. They just found my number and they call me. And I hear people yelling all the time and calling me names and you are gonna be killed and so on. That was really freaky because I thought that, no, they are capable to do this because they can't find my home if they can't find my phone. So I was trying to actually hide for 3 months or 6 months. I stopped my Twitter account, no activities, no TV, no interviews, nothing. Nothing. I was just trying to hide. And that thing made me really nervous, as you said, about the pressure that we face. We have this 5 prayers a day because, you know, they say prayers can let us pressure. I started to do yoga because the prayer wasn't helping to relax. I started to do yoga. I do shower 3 times a day because I'm shuddering, you know, I'm just shaking and my stomach hurts and I feel vomiting all the time because it's really freaky when you feel so alone in such society who's, even the member of our Kuwaiti parliament, they said that we work for Khamenei. So this is so weird because they all hate you at the same time in the same place and they see you as a criminal. So I started to hide for 6 months. Also, the family pressure was that the family gathering, actually they did a family gathering against me. They sat, they're all men. They sat and said, Hadil should stop. No, she's making us very disrespectful, so we should stop her. She's bringing shame to our family because I'm using the family name. And my family is very well known in Kuwait. They are wealthy. So yeah, she's making us in a bad situation. And actually, they talked to my father, and my father just asked me to stop. So I said, okay, I'm gonna stop for 6 months. You know, I just sneak through the door and do my job again. So it's not shown in the public, but I'm just working because you can't stop human rights work. It's just something that you have to do. There's a voice in your head telling you, you have to go there. Somebody needs you. Maybe somebody's over there just calling your name and he needs you. It's just, I think it's an obsession, but you have to do it because this is you. They know you, they can reach you, they can ask you for help. As Lana, she said, she can't sleep. Yes, we cannot sleep. I have a hotline that people could call me anytime. They get stuck on the borders. Yeah, we have this border issue. You know, the Shia that they travel through Kuwaiti borders to get to Iraq. They have this event for Ashura and to visit Imam Hussein and so on. You know what happens over there? The employers in Kuwait, they just give them names and they say that you are kafir, you're not even Muslim just because you want to visit Imam Hussein. And those people get stuck for 20 hours, blocked, not going through the road just because they're Shia. And I get many calls to let those buses go on. And they have children, they stay for 12 hours without water, and they have many problems. You know, you just don't get involved just in Kuwaiti case, but you have Bahraini, Saudi, and so on. And as long as as much as you work for human rights, if the society is not helping you, the society is not supporting you, you're just swimming in the sea alone, and there is a lot of sharks just waiting for the time just to get the bite. So I made many galleries to show that Bahraini case to our society because they think it's a Shia issue. You know what Shia is? it's a sect, Muslim sect. So they think, and the media is showing that it's not just a country political problem, it's just not an economical problem in Bahrain. No, it's just a Shia and Sunnah problem. This is what the media is trying to draw. And what I was trying to draw is so against that, to tell that people are really fighting for their own civil rights, as in Saudi Arabia, as in Budun. As a writer, I write poems, I write songs, I also write plays. I won many trophies for writing plays, monodrama, and so on. And I said, okay, let's because people, maybe they write, but they also see movies. So I wrote a movie about Bahrain Revolution, and it wasn't published yet, because if it was published, I might be arrested, and I have to wait till I reach 50 years, maybe. So I can publish it, nobody can arrest me after that. So I'm telling people the real story about what is happening over there without getting the clash, because they get through lots of clashes, but we don't do this in Kuwait. Actually, we just use force just in cases in Kuwait. But there is a soft way to kill you socially, and they can just walk into your funeral and, oh, you have stopped, really, because of that? They do this. And they can take your salary, they can stop your whole social life for making people calling you and shaming you and make you stop. You have to that level that we think that, okay, my daughter, she won't be getting married because I am the whore. My son, he won't get social life because I'm the whore, you know? They make you think that I have to stop because of that.